in the 06010.
What's good, friends? Welcome into another edition of the Fantasy Focus Football Podcast. Alongside Stefania Bell and Fields Yates, my name is Daniel Dopp. We are diving deep into Fields' favorites today. That's right. We're going to get a number of players Field is targeting that you enjoy in drafts, guys that have caught your eye. You want to make sure that not only we, but all of our audience knows about this. Stefania, do you have a Bell's Boys that is going to come out anytime soon? I was thinking about bringing out Dops Dudes or something like that.
You mean for the show?
Yeah, well, okay. Hold on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't know where to follow with that. If you guys want to take over from here, that'd be great.
Hard pivot.
Yes.
Hard pivot.
Walked right into it, my friend. But I do know, I'm excited about this show because fun for me is guessing how many of these I know. Because I spend quite a bit of time.
Yes, we do.
With a certain Field Yates. So I've watched some where people trending up for him.
People he's drafting, people he's talking about.
If you can guess along, kids.
So a couple things here.
Field's
I don't
favorites.
think the names will be a surprise to either of you guys, or probably those that listen every single day. Thank you very much. You look lovely as always. It's a day that ends in Y, so of course you do. Daniel, you look great.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Field.
Yes. Uniform.
So the conceit of this, just to be very clear, because I'm sure I have tweeted this because the article went up yesterday on ESPN.com. So you can read this article in full on ESPN.com, completely free for you to read. People don't understand Twitter for some reason. But these are not, the best players in fantasy football. These are not guys that you have never heard of. I'm not trying to outsmart you here and give you a Keandre Lambert-Smith in round 18.
Because he could.
Right? I could.
With that.
With Keandre Lambert-Smith. But the point is, these are not sleepers. These are not the most obvious candidates. It is not, Bijan Robinson and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and Saquon Barkley. The idea is these are players that over the course of probably somewhere between 50 and 60 mock drafts / real drafts that I have done so far, I've thought to myself, I really like the value of this player, understanding that a couple of those guys have seen their value spike or dip during the course of a process that's really been months long because we did the mock draft project all the way back starting in May.
I do have two questions before we start.
Fire away.
One, where did Keandre Lambert-Smith go to college?
He went to Penn State for 4 seasons and then Auburn.
Okay.
Has the most 80-plus yard catches in Penn State history.
I love this. I just want to do Field trivia every day, is what it's worth.
Unimportant knowledge.
These are guys, though, that Field hopefully can help you bring home a championship. And if you're looking to be able to add a little bit to your championship, check out our friends over at Trophy Smack. Go to TrophySmack.com, get 10% off using the promo code FOCUS10 to be able to get a belt or a chain or, you know what, maybe something for your last place finisher in the league as a loser punishment. Go check out our buddies over at Trophy Smack. We love them.
Malik Neighbors is my first pick here, Daniel. He is from LSU, and Malik Neighbors right now is going basically at the back end of the first round or even the top of the second round in 10-team leagues. I don't think anybody needs to have it explained to them why Malik Neighbors is awesome. We saw last year he had one of the greatest rookie seasons, regardless of position, we have ever seen. So the greatness is established.
And he did that with who at quarterback?
With bottom of the barrel quarterback play last year. The reason why I like Malik Neighbors, why I like him so much that he made Fields favorites, is that the first week of this show we did tiers, right?
Yep.
And we said that tiers are important because it shows that there are players who all fall into a similar level of value, even though one of them has to be ranked as the best and the second best and the third, et cetera.
Yeah.
Malik Neighbors, to me, is a tier 1 wide receiver this year, but is being drafted later than everybody else who is in that tier 1. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, guys of that nature, right? And CeeDee Lamb. I like those guys more in a vacuum.
Yep.
But not so much more that I don't love the value I'm getting, which is basically a full round discount on Malik Neighbors.
Yeah.
Who, reminder, in 170 targets last year, that was the second most in the NFL behind only Jamar Chase. Bottom of the barrel quarterback play, as I just referenced it moments ago. He has, to me, better, I don't know if it's going to be league average, 20th best quarterback play in the NFL this year, but I do know this. He's got 3 guys on the roster this year that I trust more than any of the quarterbacks last season in first Russell Wilson, Jackson Dart, Jameis Winston, whatever the order ends up being. So wouldn't surprise me at all this year if he leads the NFL in targets. The Giants not add anybody this offseason that should be a real threat to that.
Yeah.
The only question mark I have for Malik Neighbors is as we talked about on Monday's show a little bit, health crops up Stefania, but otherwise I think this player is of ridiculous value at the back of the first or the top of the second.
I think he's going to continue to be one of those players that he might miss practice, on a semi-regular basis. Yep. And if you recall last year, there was a bit of that. And then comes out and plays and lights the world on fire when he plays. I was trying to find it just now. I can't find it, but there was some interview with a cornerback who had to go up against him, and it was just talking about like everything that he does right. Like he can beat you with everything that he does. It's not just the routes, it's when he breaks, it's how he adjusts his speed, and that it is really, really difficult to cover him. And I think that is a point well taken, because we all know if you look at the Giants pass catchers, the only one who really stands out to you is Malik Neighbors. Yep. You all know that they're going to him. Like he's the target, and yet he's still able to produce. It doesn't matter if you know they're going to him, and I love guys like that.
Me too. I have two things that I want to say here. One, and I say it too, but when we say he lit the world on fire, is that a reference to Billy Joel's "We Didn't Start the Fire" by any chance?
No, it actually comes from Deary. It's a thing. It's like falconry, but it's from deer.
It's just like that. Okay,
back in the medieval times.
That's what it is, medieval times.
Shout out to Monday's show. I do not know. No,
I will say this. I love Malik Neighbors for everything that you just described, Field, because if you told me that I could potentially still get the wide receiver one, and I don't think it's crazy to say he could finish as the number one wide receiver in fantasy,
right?
But I don't have to spend that early first-round pick. I can get him at the end of the first round and still get that same value. I love the ability to be able to get this guy, especially with the improved quarterback play. Russell Wilson had a beautiful moonshot over this last weekend. Jackson Dart looked really good. And I don't need to see Jameis Winston to know how good he is for our fantasy wide receivers. So I am all in on Malik Neighbors as well. Love this argument.
I'm going to read these players in terms of where their overall ADP is, right? So this is not like, hey, this is absolutely my favorite and this is like my least favorite of the favorites, but it goes in ADP. Next up for me is Jalen Hurts. And I mentioned this on like one of the very first shows that we did. So the point for those that were paying a lot of attention is probably not a surprise. But we all keep talking about how there are at least 4 of the elite quarterbacks.
Yep.
You and I feel like Joe Burrow deserves to be mentioned in that conversation. Yep. Mike is less convinced on it. But let's just talk about the 4 that are going very, very close right now in overall ADP. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, and Jalen Hurts. I think there's a real chance that any of those 4 could finish as quarterback 1. Right now, what you're getting, though, is basically a full round discount on whoever that 4th quarterback is. It turns out it's Jalen Hurts, who, what's his live ADP? And these things change literally every minute. So just don't get mad if what Daniel says right now is not what you see when you go and check on your own computer.
So Josh Allen average pick is 20, Lamar is 22, Jaden Daniels is 28, which I think he's coming off the board usually ahead of that when I see it. And then Jalen Hurts is 29.7. Okay, so almost a full round behind Josh Allen.
Again, it's nothing against any of the 3 quarterbacks ahead of him. It is a simple matter that Jalen Hurts, who is money in the bank, who is going to run for 10 plus touchdowns this season if he stays healthy, who doesn't need to throw for even 3,000 yards, because that's where he was. He was under 3,000 last year. He did miss the last few games because of injury. But the bottom line is that Jalen Hurts is one of the steadiest players in all of fantasy football. The tush-push being back this year, gigantic for Jalen Hurts.
Huge.
So to me, getting potentially quarterback 1, a full round cheaper than another guy who has a very similar profile, great value-based drafting.
I love that. And when you look at that rushing upside, I mean, if the tush push had gone somewhere, I would maybe feel differently given that low volume passing offense.
Saquon might be RB1 if the tush push was gone.
Yep.
Seriously.
Because not that they can't run the football still. Like, you can still quarterback sneak without the tush push, but they might say, hey, we feel as though the tush push is a safer version of the quarterback sneak. We're not going to quarterback sneak with Jalen. Instead, we're going to have Saquon Barkley do that job for us because he's very capable of that.
I just want to say that Jalen Hurts has been so good on the ground. You mentioned he's going to have 10 rushing touchdowns. You say that because he's done it for 4 straight seasons. Yes. So it doesn't feel like that volume is going to go anywhere.
It's the most successful play in the league, right?
Who has the most rushing?
So successful that people tried to get the rule changed.
Literally, they tried to ban it. We can't do it as well as the Eagles do, so we don't want them to be able to do it either.
And that failed miserably. But you know what's funny, too, is I forgot what I was going to say. I know, because I was so thinking about the rule change being there. But it's kind of another thing where you know this guy is going to do it, and he's still able to achieve it. Kind of like we were talking about with
there's no mystery when it's coming,
like,
right?
Everybody knows the lineup is the same, but I actually think that the worry with quarterbacks in a sneak is always that they're going to get hurt. It's really interesting. Tom Brady was one of the best at doing that whenever they needed first down, right? Yeah. Fourth and short, Tom Brady would do the sneak. He would get it. They were never worried. Do you guys remember when Patrick Mahomes did a quarterback
Denver Broncos
sneak?
Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, and we were all together watching it, and all of a sudden, massive alarm bells, right?
Yep.
Patrick Mahomes is hurt, subluxed his kneecap. That was the last we saw of that. Like,
he and Kyler Murray do not quarterback sneak
anymore. It does not happen, and so it's not something that translates to every single quarterback. And I also think, you remember back when people said, well, because Jalen and Saquon, when Saquon was coming over to the Eagles, they didn't believe Saquon would perform as well as he ended up doing because they thought Jalen was going to steal all the goal line touchdowns and Saquon would never get touchdowns. Wasn't that cute?
Yeah. Yeah.
Remember how that was a worry?
Things still worked out there.
It's not a worry.
I will say this. Over the last 4 years, the player that has led the entire NFL in rushing touchdowns is not Derrick Henry. It's not Josh Jacobs. It's not Jonathan Taylor. It's Jalen freaking Hurts. He has more rushing touchdowns over the last 4 years than any other player in the NFL. And one of the reasons why we love that is because even though it's a low-volume passing offense, rushing touchdowns are worth 6 points. Passing touchdowns are worth 4 points. I know that's a really basic and obvious thing, but that elevates his floor in a major way, dude.
For those who struggle with math, 6 greater
is more than
4.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm looking at basically 120 points minimum from Jalen Hurts as a runner every season.
Yeah.
Yep.
600 plus rushing yards and 10 plus rushing touchdowns. That's sort of the baseline that I think is the low end of where Jalen Hurts ends up.
Agreed.
All right, so I'm keeping it Jalen this segment because I am next going Jalen Waddle, who I think you guys probably have heard some of my recent affinity for. There are some questions I have about this Miami offense. Like I think this team, there is a little bit of house of cards to this Dolphins team right now. It feels like if there was a team that just like the chemistry falls apart and this just becomes a weird season, this could be on the short list of teams that I feel that way about. But the upside's pretty obvious, right? He has 3 1,000-yard seasons, does Jalen Waddle in his just 5-year career. He's a really, really talented guy. One of those seasons was tons of volume and a low average yards per catch. One of those seasons was not as much volume and a very high average yards per catch. He's a really, really versatile and talented player. But the part that I think is worth mentioning, and again, I'm not, let me know if I'm using this properly, eschewing Tyreek Hill entirely in drafts.
That's right.
But the reason why I'm a bit more nervous about Tyreek Hill is just because it seems like him and the organization are in a bad place right now. And if he is in a bad place with the Dolphins and Jalen Waddle steps in and builds off of this preseason hype that we have seen from him, even taking preseason hype with a grain of salt, the possibility of him being wide receiver one of the Miami offense, which is a potentially very good offense, to me is too good to ignore. And his current ADP is like way down there, is like wide receiver 28.
I feel that's what I was just going to say to you is one of the reasons why I love your Jalen Waddle call is because vibes don't seem super high right now.
Yeah.
And the reason for that feels like it's Tyreek. Like if I'm building a narrative, it's like, okay, like I still am drafting Jalen Waddle as a guy that can be at least a wide receiver 3 for my squad.
Yep.
But if anything does happen where like this team does sort of fall apart because of all these issues that are going on, that seems like it would be a Tyreek Hill thing more than anything else, which would just propel Jalen Waddle to being a better option for us in fantasy.
I'm going to give you guys a couple of players, and there's really no way to prove this because we can't go through every player's season and guarantee the highest level of upside. I personally would argue that the peak upside for Jalen Waddle, who, by the way, has dropped down to wide receiver 32.
Too low field. We got to pump that.
To me, the peak upside of Jalen Waddle this season is higher, and this is just my opinion, people can certainly disagree, than the upside of Zay Flowers.
Yep.
Rashee Rice because of the very likely suspension he's going to have.
Agreed.
Cortland Sutton.
Yep.
And amongst others, Devontae Smith.
Yeah.
Those guys are all really talented players. I just think if you hit the absolute apex value of this player, I think there's a better season in Jalen Waddle's repertoire than those guys. Now, is it a guarantee that any of them hit their peak season? Of course not. But this is why we are talking about draft strategy, and my strategy leans towards a guy like Jalen Waddle.
I feel like in this situation, a lot of this, I mean, last year we just watched this offense be so bad without Tua that it makes me want to know, even if something happened there again, the backup quarterback situation. There are more moving parts here, I guess, is what I'm thinking.
Yep.
More moving parts because of that. So I've been in on Jalen Waddle. I have a bunch of in my best ball drafts because I think that the ADP is too good, like where he's falling.
Yeah.
And with the upside that he can have, I would have loved to see him do something more. He's kind of been inconsistent throughout his career with the way that the Dolphins have utilized him.
That's what I was going to say. It's a function of that offense, not a function of him.
Yeah. So anyways, but he's still only 26 years old. I mean, the dude can be a beast field. I like this call a lot.
All right. So
Yeah, and no Jonnu Smith anymore.
Oh,
and I know they have
thank
Darren
goodness.
Waller, which we don't really know what we're going to get with Darren Waller as the tight end in Miami. But Jonnu Smith was a pass catcher who took some volume away. And I agree with you with the Tyreek Hill situation. There could be more of this merging of the Tua and Jalen Waddle connection.
First 2 seasons of his career, Jalen Waddle was wide receiver 14 and wide receiver 11.
Yeah.
Last 2 seasons of his career, he's been wide receiver 33 and wide receiver 50. I think he's much closer to the first 2 seasons guy than I do the last 2 seasons guy.
I said, by the way, earlier, 5 seasons for Waddle. I am aging him by a year, just 4, as
sorry.
Daniel referenced. No, that was on you. That was good correction by you and bad podcasting by me to start. All right, peek behind the curtain here. We get our summer slate of stuff that we need to do early in the summer. Keith Lipscomb does a great job being very, very attentive to here's what's going to look like. Here's the rollout. Here's when we need these various things. So I'm the kind of person that sometimes chips away at things. I don't necessarily just like sit down, get it done, and move forward with my life. This was a piece that I was chipping away on for a little while. I started doing this in early August. Check this. When I initially wrote up Travion Henderson, his ADP was 82.2.
82.2.
What is it now?
His ADP right now is 60.2.
Wow.
Wow, full 2 rounds.
2 spots. Over 2 rounds since I started writing this up early in August. Now, since that time, there's been a lot of coverage of the Patriots because they've been in training camp.
Yep.
He had a 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown in the
People
first
have
preseason
seen him.
game.
Yep.
I
He
think
looked the part in the second preseason game. This guy is good. He is #very good, is Travion Henderson. So you can make the case that Henderson should be excluded from this list because he's not the same level of value as he was when I first got started. But I'm going to continue to be a part of the problem rather than the kind of person that's going to suppress his value by not drafting him or taking him, convincing my league to let him go where he was at the beginning of August. You're constantly looking for the upside players in fantasy football. And at some point, this is going to get too high for Travion Henderson because there are just really, really good running backs that I am seeing him fall behind now in drafts.
Yep.
But in a relatively thin position, right? Like he has now entered the territory just for data points about who is being drafted just ahead of or right around Travion Henderson, just behind him. James Conner, Breece Hall, DeAndre Swift, David Montgomery. Those are the guys that are like right in that same vicinity as him. You could make the case that the upside is the highest here because he's the most explosive player out of those guys. Breece Hall maybe right there as well, but Hall, there's the uncertainty of how much of a role is he going to have. Now, it's possible that if Henderson keeps crawling, and next thing you know, he's ahead of the likes of Alvin Kamara and Chuba Hubbard, guys who have really, really solid roles, like guaranteed, then maybe it's like too much. But upside really matters in fantasy football. We have seen Travion Henderson continue to go extremely high in drafts.
You mentioned this, and I'm curious what you guys think.
Yep.
One of the reasons why Travion Henderson, even though he's been climbing, that I just have a little bit of pause is I don't know how the Patriots are going to address Ramondre Stevenson. If we knew that he just had this backfield to himself, I mean, similar to David Montgomery, right? He's coming off the board at 22.
Yep.
If there was no Jahmyr Gibbs in that offense, he'd be a top 12 running back, top 15 running back for us.
Yep.
If there was no Ramondre Stevenson and they just decided to give him the full workload, Travion Henderson, is RB 12 too high?
It's probably in that range. It's somewhere in like that 12 to 15 range because I do think, unlike some of the backs that are definitely top 10 backs, I would want to see a little bit of committee because this is a player who was at his best during his final college season.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
As part of a committee with the Cleveland Browns, Quinshon Judkins, who is now a Cleveland Brown at Ohio State.
Yeah. Love that.
Henderson, number 4. Again, this is based off ADP. So he has now jumped Jalen Waddle from when I wrote the piece, but I am using the list as it was when I actually submitted it to Keith Lipscomb.
I'd like to think that you were the reason the ADP moved and not because of the 100-yard touchdown run back on the kickoff and not his play on the field. Like, this is all you, Field Yates.
Yes, I'll take all the credit I can get for it. Next up here, potentially this year's version of Tony Pollard. Isaiah Pacheco, like just a good starting running back,
same injury.
hiding in plain sight. Is that right?
Really?
Yeah, fractured fibula.
Oh, wow.
Week 2 of last year, if you recall, was a question whether he'd come back. And, I can't tell you how many people I've heard say he didn't look as explosive or, he wasn't the same guy. Well,
Right.
he broke his leg and came back in the same season. And you do that sometimes. You make those decisions because you're a team that's pursuing a championship all the way to the Super Bowl. So why not allow the player to play if medically he's cleared to play? But what do we always say? Return to play, return to performance, right? Not enough time for him to get back fully from that injury. And so I think people are sleeping on Isaiah Pacheco this year.
Yeah, he seems like kind of a boring option, perhaps too boring for some to be taking. But we look at the Chiefs' backfield right now this offseason. I've referenced this previously. The 2 additions were Elijah Mitchell on a very low-risk contract, formerly of the 49ers.
Yep.
And then also a 7th-round pick on Brashard Smith, player who began his college career at Miami as a wide receiver, finished up as a running back at SMU. He's a good player. I liked him as a prospect. He also went in the 7th round. Mike has tracked historical trends on how much of an impact day 3 running backs make, and there's not a ton of guys that have broken through that mold and been big factors. So Pacheco, in 2 games prior to the injury last year, handled 40 opportunities, including 7 catches. When he is good to go, he seems to me pretty clearly the Chiefs' lead back for an offense that we think will be better. He's an objectively talented player, and I should note for those that are like, wait, who's to say Brashard Smith can't be a factor when Isaiah Pacheco himself was a factor? Fair point. That being said, these are unlikely things to continue to happen, especially in the same backfield on the same team. I just don't view Kareem Hunt / Elijah Mitchell / Brashard Smith as a major threat. And Isaiah Pacheco's current ADP is 80.8.
Yes.
End of the 8th round, beginning of the 9th round, depending on your league size. And that, by the way, is a full round later than David Montgomery, who's going as RB22 versus Pacheco as RB23.
And the difference there is we are a little bit, I don't want to say worried, but cognizant that David Montgomery has Jahmyr Gibbs in front of him.
Yes.
Isaiah Pacheco doesn't have anybody. Pacheco is my favorite hero RB second running back. If I grab a guy at the beginning or an anchor running back to start the draft, I don't mind filling out all the rest of my positions and then trying to grab Pacheco as my second running back because last year he was RB 12 to 15 for us in the preseason. Now he's all the way down at running back 25 or later in a lot of drafts. So I'm all in on Pacheco. Stefania, when you come back from an injury like that, it's just different. I feel like broken bones versus ligaments and tissue and stuff like that. Am I being crazy when I think that?
It's so broken bones heal really well. Broken bones sounds bad, right? They think, oh, ankle sprain, that's not so bad. Broken bone, that's terrible. Well, broken bone, very painful, but bone heals incredibly well most of the time, unless it's a place where it's not as inclined to heal, and that's a different conversation. But broken bones heal well, and when bone heals, it makes it actually stronger, the site of the fracture, because it lays down more bone. Soft tissue injuries, they're a little bit harder to predict, and especially when you have injury down low, like around the ankle, for example. There can be scar tissue. You can have instability issues. You might have a joint-related cartilage issue. So it's hard to predict how a player is going to look coming off of any of those kind of injuries. And when you have what Isaiah Pacheco had, you have not only the bone issue, but you also have the soft tissue injuries around it that often don't get mentioned because the quickest thing to say is the fracture. So what that means is it's not just a matter of the bone healing. It's a matter of getting your ankle back to normal, getting the strength of all your muscles around it. And for a running back who runs, we talk about the way angry, stomps his foot into the ground, digs his foot into the ground to make those hard cuts and pivots. People are like, why isn't he as explosive? Well, you're coming off a major injury. You wouldn't be as explosive either. You'd be tentative when you first start to hit the ground. You'd have to get confidence back in your leg. That's what we see. And that's why people like Tony Pollard, who had struggles in that first year back with the Cowboys, then goes to Tennessee and gets a new lease on life and looks like he's running like his former self.
New lease on life, and yet he's coming off the board after Isaiah Pacheco.
And for those reasons, Tony Pollard also makes the list this year. How about
Look at that?
Tony Pollard, who I said that Isaiah Pacheco may be this year's version of Tony Pollard, or Tony Pollard
might be this year's version.
That being said, both Pacheco and Pollard are moving up right now. Pollard's been one of the biggest movers over the past 7 days. He's up to 86.1. When I submitted this to Keith, he was at 100.1 6.3. So basically 14 spots for Tony Pollard, moving up already, as I think probably influenced in part by the Tajay Spears injury. It was just a reminder to people that it's a thin backfield. But to quote Mike Clay, check this out. Tony Pollard finished the 2024 season 6th in the NFL in rushing attempts, 9th in the NFL in total touches, 12th in rushing yards, and he was a top 20 running back in 9 of his 16 games played. That last part is important because what the takeaway is for me on Tony Pollard is that this isn't a guy who's got this crazy massive upside week in and week out, but his floor is better than I think other running backs that are being drafted a little bit ahead of him and certainly right behind him. And I talked about roster construction a ton so far this preseason, is that like, it's great if you can take 3 big swings and they all hit. Or like, it would be awesome if you drafted Travion Henderson early and you take Travis Hunter and you take Tetairoa McMillan, and all 3 of those guys reach what we think is the potential ceiling for them. There's also a chance that 1 or 2 out of those 3 guys don't return value. Tony Pollard should return decent value going in the 9th round, because you're not drafting a player in the 9th round who you understand what the baseline is of his skill set and his opportunity and expecting him to be, the 5th scoring running back in fantasy football this year. This is an identity play. Like, this is a guy who, when my RB2 goes down due to injury or is on a bye week, I've got Tony Pollard waiting in the wings. And while he may not have 25-point upside that week, I can probably count on 12 to 16 points. And that is way more comforting than some of the backs you're going to find on the waiver wire during the season, because there's all kinds of volatility at running back past like 25 good options.
Yeah, I'm just trying to tell me if you feel like this depth chart is wrong, Field. But we're talking Tony Pollard and then Tajay Spears and Khalil Mullings.
Khalil Mullings, yes.
And then Julius Chestnut. None of those names are like, should I be more worried than I am right now? Because it doesn't feel like Tony Pollard has any competition.
It feels like he's probably the guy. Yeah, it feels like he's probably the guy once again this season.
Yeah.
One more pick here before we get to some late round quarterback flyers. There's so many good ones here.
Ooh, I like that.
The last one, though, is Tyrone Tracy Jr., running back for the New York Giants, who has also seen his ADP go up nearly a round over the past week. He's up 9.2 spots.
Wow.
Is Tyrone Tracy Jr. And again, you're going at the end of the 10th round, basically, is Tyrone Tracy. He definitely saw his value take a hit this offseason because the Giants not only drafted a good player in Cam Skattebo, very notable player, right? Yeah. College football fans know Cam Skattebo. He was awesome for
fan favorite
Arizona State last year. He's been banged up. He's been dealing with a hamstring injury, right, Stefania, for Skattebo? So we haven't seen a lot of him during training camp, which has given us a reminder that Tracy is still good, and he had 829 yards, I believe it was, in the ground last year. He had 1,123 yards as a rookie, did Tyrone Tracy Jr., and that included the beginning of the season when we did see a healthy amount of Devin Singletary. I think that Tracy is going to be the starter to begin this season. And when you're taking a running back who is going at the back end of the 10th round, you don't need him to hold that value all year long, right? If you can get 4, 6, maybe 8 games of Tracy being the guy that you want to start out of the Giants' backfield, it's just worth it. It's just flat worth it.
And ideally, the way that I look at
spot of the draft too.
Yeah, at that spot of the draft, when I look at who else he's coming off the board around, and I say, all right, can I get potential bye-week fill-in for my 2 starters from this guy? That to me automatically is like, all right, I feel comfortable with that. And then there's still upside for more just based on how this backfield shakes out. We love this story and idea of what Cam Skattebo can be. He's still a rookie. Like
he'll have a role at some point. I feel good about that.
And I enjoy drafting him because and especially now that his draft stock has fallen a little bit with the hamstring injury, because I feel like that's somebody I can look forward to in the second half of the season.
The only reason you like drafting him is because he's the oldest running back in this rookie class. That's why at 23 years old, he's old for a rookie, Stefania.
I would say this. It is... So Skattebo is dropping like crazy. He's down to his current ADP is 127 overall. And there was a time where it was like closer to 100.
Right. And when we were doing our mock draft project, we all started, you could see that he actually flip-flopped with Tracy for a little bit there, late in those mock drafts. And I think if we saw a lot, there's such recency bias for the population in general when it comes to preseason football, don't you think? It's like, okay, haven't seen him. No, he's not here, out of sight, out of mind, injury, like immediately just file him away. But you wait. I think Cam Scatterby is going to prove to have value for you later in the season. And for me, it's like if somebody gets hurt, this is a guy that I want on my bench. I'm comfortable taking him as a flyer pick late.
So those are the 7 that made the list.
Okay.
7, right? Yep. And then I want to give you 3 quarterback flyers here. And none of them will be a surprise because we've talked about each one of them extensively throughout the preseason. But quarterback flyers that I think have, and there are, by the way, I could have named 8 quarterback flyers. I felt like the segment lost some punch if you give 8.
That's fair.
Because it's basically quarterbacks that are going way late. And how many quarterbacks are going way late? The answer is probably like 15 total. So half the league, if you're taking half of that half, is not quite as notable. Here's 3. Drake May, who, like his teammate Travion Henderson, has seen his ADP move up. Let me get May's current live ADP. It is now up to, let's see, Drake May is at 138.7, so he continues to rise. There was a time where Drake May was around 166 on ESPN ADP. That's quarterback 16 for Drake May. To me, it's actually pretty obvious here with Drake May is that if the rushing really hits, which it did last year to a degree, he averaged nearly 8 yards per carry, 7.8 yards to be specifically for Drake May. None of that was designed until the very end of the season.
Running for his life half
yes,
the time.
It was. Yes. And so scrambles do help us in fantasy football, but I think what will be even more helpful for Drake May is if he gets 5 goal-to-go opportunities this year, which I think is possible, by the way, you could see some major, major rushing upside. Not too far behind him is actually J.J. McCarthy, who's going just 0.7 spots on average behind Drake May. So 138.7 to 139.4. I don't need to belabor this one a whole lot. Mike has laid this out brilliantly many times before that basically Kevin O'Connell churns out top 12
sure
quarterbacks.
Does.
He just does. Kirk Cousins. Last year it was Sam Darnold, of course. Even the year that Cousins was banged up, there was like a smorgasbord of Josh Dobbs and Nick Mullins and those types. I think it was Jaron Hall, Josh Dobbs, and a couple of other ones that found their way to
Nick Mullins.
Cumulative, top 12 season for the Vikings. So very, very productive offense. And then the third one, this was not how things were when I submitted the piece, but he's going just 1.4 spots behind J.J. McCarthy is Jordan Love, who is, of course, right now dealing with that non-throwing thumb issue, but the Packers seem very confident he'll be fine for week.
Yeah, he should be fine. He had a surgical procedure, had an injury on his left thumb, and the thought was if you get it taken care of now, if you didn't get it taken care of, any kind of instability or issue in the thumb could create trouble, especially with ball security, things like that you worry about. Now you get it fixed. He should be fine. And also, people are like, well, it doesn't matter at all. Well, it does, because taking snaps, your thumb can affect you. How you set the ball, that all matters, but he'll have plenty of time to be able to get that back.
Fields, when you played college football, you were a safety?
Mostly bench, but yes.
Yeah, okay.
So when they actually let me on the field, it was safety.
Did you ever get under center to feel what it feels like to take a snap?
I've taken a snap before, but I did not ever play quarterback in my life. I have a funny story. I did start one game in college. Because the 2 seniors who normally started skipped Friday walkthrough or practice.
Stop. I was hoping it was one of those Rudy moments where the team came in and put their jerseys down on the coach's desk and we want Field to be out there.
Ruby. I think they were just like, Jesus.
So I've always wondered, when you get a snap from a center, right before he's about to smash someone in the face, how quickly it comes back and hits you in the hands. I can only imagine it's actually
hard.
more jarring than what you think.
It's much more jarring than you think, which is why there's, people say it's no big deal, but when you have a hand injury, that's actually a problem for quarterbacks.
Actually, the most jarring thing is the way quarterbacks throw. So during my time working in both, sort of scouting, it was, part of your job when you're sort of on the lowest rungs is sometimes it'll just be an extra ball boy. And you see quarterbacks and it looks, of course, amazing on TV. But when quarterbacks on the sideline, they'll have someone catch for them.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's because no quarterback is capable of throwing the ball
Catch.
gently.
Right. How'd you like to be assigned that job for Anthony Richardson or somebody?
Here's a
who
deep cut. Back in the day, so Rohan Davey, who was this incredible quarterback out of LSU. He was gigantic. And let's just say that he was not exactly in the best of shape. This is actually funny. Bill Belichick, in a very funny moment, made Rohan Davey. He came out to practice for 3 weeks in number 72 jersey.
Stop.
Because he was so out of shape.
Stop.
Belichick was like an offensive lineman. So he had to wear 72. It was motivation to get him out and get him down to his playing shape. But somehow I would always be the person that had to catch Rohan. And I swear to God, it was like catching a Randy Johnson fastball in every play. I was like, please don't. Like, my hands were pink.
Were you wearing gloves when you would do it, or did you go?
I wisened up after the first day.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to wear gloves. Like, I just wore gloves, like, around the town at that moment going forward. Like, let me just wear gloves at all times in case of Rohan Davey football comes thrown my way.
That's incredible.
I swear, like, it was like the skin would, like, tear off. It was coming so fast.
Dude. All right. Anyways, we totally got off track here, but I appreciate
there are
this.
three really good options, one of which is Jordan Love.
And I want to say this. If I had to pick one of these guys, I love Drake May as well. I think J.J. McCarthy is the quarterback that I'm the most excited about, because what you saw Kevin O'Connell do last year with Sam Darnold.
He's brilliant, man.
He had over 300 fantasy points. He finished as quarterback 9. Yeah. And this was a quarterback that no other NFL team seemingly wanted. The way that Kevin O'Connell is able to scheme up an offense and make sure that you're finding ways to get your people involved. I still think it's a really good offensive line. J.J. McCarthy should have enough time to be able to throw the ball.
Yep.
I love the idea of, if we saw Sam Darnold do that last year, and I don't want to take a shot at Sam Darnold, pump for the story, hopefully that he does really well in Seattle. But if Sam Darnold can do that, then first-round pick J.J. McCarthy and all the intangibles that he brings to the table, I'm really high on what he can do this year as well.
Totally, yeah. I mean, the big question with J.J., I think, that opens up a different level of security for fantasy football is that if he isn't like this super prolific, refined passer right out of the gates, is how much rushing ability is there? He's a good athlete. He was
really
a good runner
athlete
in college. We just haven't seen a ton of design runs from a Kevin O'Connell offense because they haven't needed to, and they also haven't had the quarterbacks that are always the archetype to do it.
But he did make an interesting comment after JJ had a scramble, one of the preseason games. And that Kevin O'Connell remarked about it, that he liked it. He liked his decision making there. He liked that. He had to move to get that first down, and he did so. So that showed a couple things. Number one, JJ McCarthy coming off a meniscus repair, which is a big deal because it cost him an entire season. These are not small surgeries. But I think the fact, when I was at Vikings camp last year, and Darnold and McCarthy were basically splitting their reps with the ones. And even during that practice, I saw that happen. They were getting equal time. O'Connell was not really showing his hand as to who was going to be the number one. And then J.J. McCarthy got hurt in that subsequent preseason game. So there was never a decision that had to be made. I can only imagine how much that boosted the confidence of a J.J. McCarthy, who thought he was in contention for that starting role last year and got all that practice with the team and then stayed with them and grew even though he couldn't play physically. And so I think if you saw the little bit I've watched in the preseason, there is a confidence in J.J. McCarthy's game that I think will allow him to make some of those runs. Yeah. In addition to succeed. I want whatever Kevin O'Connell, I wish you could bottle that and give it to half these coaches around the league and say, this is how you mentor a quarterback. This is how you develop a quarterback. This is how you build the confidence of a young player who has yet to play in the NFL, and you want them to have success.
I've actually been really frustrated as a Lions fan
good coaches.
We finally got good. Dan Campbell came in and just totally turned the culture on him and Brad Holmes. And then it's like, but of course we have Kevin O'Connell in this same division that we have to deal with. I do want to say, Stefania Johnson in the division. I know. Don't even get me started. And Matt LaFleur is not a scrub either. I know. The NFC North is loaded.
All loaded, yeah.
I do want to say this with the Vikings. I just think it's worth noting. Jordan Addison is going to miss the first 3 games of the season. Okay. TJ Hawkinson, he did return last year. He had that MCL, ACL injury in 2023. Didn't look like he was fully back. I'm very much hoping.
I'm very excited about TJ Hawkinson.
Me too.
This year. Yep.
One of the guys that I'm buying the dip on. And then Justin Jefferson has been dealing with some hamstring issues as well. So there are a few things in that offense just to be able to keep an eye on. I don't know if there are any updates on Justin Jefferson since we last talked.
No, but this is another one where it's just a little bit of the gut and really good medical staff who is going to build everything around prepping for week 1. Don't forget, Justin Jefferson had a hamstring issue previously that cost him games in the season. I think everyone's mindful of that. So you have to have a combination of getting a player ready to play football because we've talked about this before. You don't get enough reps in the preseason. Your ramp up is too fast. That leads to injury. We know hamstrings have a high rate of recurrence. So how do you balance coming off something that's reportedly minor, but still be ready to take on this season, if you will, and take on the volume of work that it will be.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a dance. I think this staff is going to be as good at it in prepping Justin Jefferson as anybody else. Look at how they navigated Aaron Jones, who people were worried about his health, and he has been pretty fantastic with the Vikings. So I'm not worried about Justin Jefferson, but you can't say there's zero risk just knowing there was a little something to start this season.
Field, do you have a Field? I'm so sorry. It's Field's favorites.
Field's
Stefania, when you look
This is my question to you guys. Do you have one that you like or hate?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Do you have a favorite out of this list?
Favorite of the favorites?
Out of this list, well, I've already kind of been saying some of the ones I love along. Like I love J.J. McCarthy as a Flyer. That's huge for me. I agree on the Jalen Waddle. I probably haven't been as vocal as Field, but I certainly see him emerging. And then Isaiah Pacheco. I love Isaiah Pacheco, and I think he has a chance to show people that they were sleeping on him.
I agree with that. I've been using the term buying the dip on Isaiah Pacheco coming back. Obviously, we saw him last year, but I think there's a lot of recency bias with the idea that he returned and didn't look good, and that wasn't great.
Ask me if I had a favorite. That wasn't here because it's Field's favorites, but just for fun.
Oh, Stefania's favorites?
No, I don't want a
wow.
whole column.
Okay.
I just thought you might ask me if I had one because I have one for you.
Do you have one? Okay, all right. Who's your favorite, Stefania Bell?
Look
at that.
I didn't know. Emeka Egbuka.
Okay.
Well, I think, people are starting to catch on. I think wasn't it Adam on our fantasy draft marathon who said, or maybe on NFL Live that day, but at some point,
for them,
high praise. They love him in camp, and I think there's a reason they picked this guy in the first round. I think he's a talent. I think he's shown that he can be effective out of the gate. We talk about wide receivers taking a year to acclimate, maybe don't expect much. But if Chris Godwin isn't ready to go, and here, just a little sidebar on Chris Godwin. Won't get all into the injury. You've heard me talk about it other places. But even if he's ready to play, I'm not sure he's ready to play at the level he was performing at before or the volume of work out of the gate. He's still not practicing. His injury was really nasty. When you look at fractured dislocations of the ankle, they're terrible. You don't just step back on the field and all of a sudden move the way you used to, and it's no big deal. So once you're cleared, there's getting back into that football shape. And if you recall, when he came off the ACL, MCL, he looked pretty good. Had a hamstring injury that cost him a couple games, but came back. And it wasn't until this year that he really looked great this past year, like the Chris Godwin that we'd come to know and love. And it was such a shame when he got hurt because he was having what could have been a career year for him. All of that said, they've invested in him for 3 years. I've said this a million times. You would think they want him to achieve as much of that contract as they can. He's beloved in the community. So it all makes sense that you don't crush him at the beginning.
Yeah.
And even though they're saying all the right things about where he's at in terms of his progression, it may not be enough to be what we think of as Chris Godwin's role in that offense right away. Enter Emeka Egbuka, who I think could really be a nice surprise for fantasy managers out of the gate.
And please correct me if I'm wrong, I should have been more up to date on this, but didn't Jalen McMillan get hurt this last weekend as well?
Did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or is that something that
we don't know
have a
all
lot of
the
information.
details.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's just one more chip, I guess.
So anyway, I just thought I just brought one to the party because I thought maybe I should have one.
Party.
Wow.
Never show up empty-handed to a party.
I guess if I'm going to bring one to the party, I'll be real quick about this. Isaiah Pacheco was one of my guys. I would have said him, but Ricky Pearsall is a wide receiver. I continue to be in the drunk for.
You picked him and not me because everybody thinks I'm home.
Well, one of us is a 49ers fan. That's right.
Yeah.
But I'm in on Ricky Pearsall, especially with where he's coming off the board.
Did you watch any of that Niners preseason game? Who were the first three completions to? Pearsall.
He's the only wide receiver they have right now, too.
I know. I mean, they had a couple other guys make a couple catches out there, but he is clearly the wide receiver one right now.
It seems that way coming off the board at 118.
Nice value.
So
Late
12,
value.
13 round. That's where you're looking at him, which is not too bad.
Like it.
Field a pretty good list. If you want to, you can go check it out at ESPN.com.
I'll take fine. Yeah, I'll take fine. Totally good with that.
Pretty good.
Honestly, I say so many nice things about Field that I kind of got to knock him down a peg every once in a while.
It's his favorite, so you gave it a pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Right.
It's sort of like when Mike Clay does his grades at the end of drafts, and we all just get B's or C's. It's pretty good.
Totally.
Pretty good for what it's worth. All right, that's going to do it for us today. We got more for you later on this week, potentially coming from an island.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
So make sure you stay with us. We love you guys. Don't forget to love each other, and we will see you guys next time.